today's webinar, Smart Integration Technology for Oracle PeopleSoft Enterprise. My name is Glenn Johnson. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Magic Software Enterprises Americas, and I'm joined today by our Senior Consultant, Or Gott. Welcome, Or.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, everyone.
We want to thank each of you for joining us and appreciate your interest in today's topic of smart integration technology for PeopleSoft. We certainly have had a lot of interest in this topic, and so we're very excited about being able to present the information to you in today's session. Just a word about Magic Software before we begin. Those of you who are familiar with Magic probably met us through the Quest International Users Group, where we were a platinum sponsor. We have 30 years of experience in the IT industry. We are a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol MGIC. Magic has expertise in its innovative technology, which we'll be presenting in the demonstration today. We offer both a integration platform and an application platform to market with special capabilities, obviously, for integration to enterprise applications like PeopleSoft Enterprise. And so we're very focused on this particular segment of the market, which we see as being driven by business requirements, firstly, but also that can be understood as having a unique technology platform and environment for your core ERP and human resource management systems and so on. And so we like to really focus the message in that way for you today. So in this session, there will be discussion of technology, and this little strip from Geek and Poke helps me kind of keep it in perspective. The guy on the right says, SOA, SCA, ESB, EDA, ESA, BLI, blah, blah, and so forth. And then the guy on the left responds, great, and what about the ROI? The first guy says, well, don't bother me with buzzwords, and it's just kind of typical sometimes the conversations that we have perhaps between IT and the business side of our organization. Hopefully not, but I think it humorously illustrates, some of the differences in the way that we speak about these things. So if we get into some technology buzzwords today, please forgive us. That's kind of just our nature. And also we hope that we adequately focus and keep the attention to the business requirements and benefits and value that comes to the organization as a result of implementing these kinds of solutions. So many of you have experienced point-to-point integration efforts around web services where you've had to write web services and routines to handle those various web services in your PeopleSoft environment through the PeopleSoft integration broker, and you know that there's some overhead for that. And so you might be writing these web services that go from PeopleSoft to a third-party CRM system, or from PeopleSoft to an e-commerce platform, or from PeopleSoft back and forth to a product lifecycle management solution, and on and on. And as we start to count the number of enterprise systems in addition to PeopleSoft that we have in our organization, the number of direct point-to-point integrations that we have to write in these various web services routines and handlers can be growing quite large, and that becomes difficult to maintain and to track all of that manually coded kind of solution for integration. So the suggestion is that there is a better way to manage all of those web services coming out of your PeopleSoft integration broker and out of the many other systems that you have in your environment, which often are not based on web services. So there's already some programming that has to be done to intermediate those systems so that they are exchanging information in a common way into web services from whatever environment that other system might be communicating to you, and whether it's a flat file or an XML, or you might just have the difference between SOAP and RESTful web services and so on, but these are technologies, and technologies require, very specific kinds of ways of interacting with one another, obviously, and so there can be a lot of line-by-line coding that ends up taking place in your environment, and the cost and overhead of managing that, maintaining it over time, it gets exponentially larger as the number of systems increases. So the better solution is to take a loosely coupled approach so that you don't have hard-coded integration between the PeopleSoft web service and the web service of whatever other system is out there, or the flat file or XML or Java objects or that other system, whatever it is that you're integrating to. A loosely coupled approach will allow you to work through an integration platform, a broker of some kind that allows you to have a true loosely coupled solution. And quite often you'll see that paired with a hub and spoke approach, so that all of the various services that are being made available and integration APIs that are being made available by the various enterprise systems then are working through a platform environment, a middleware environment of some kind that is managing all of the thousands or millions of transactions that are taking place in your particular organization. This can also be manipulated via a bus architecture, both in Magic's technology as well as through other technologies, and quite often you'll see a mix of both hub and spoke and sort of a bus approach, which gives you, in many respects, the best of both worlds for that. So in order to make the decisions about how to integrate your PeopleSoft environment in a more efficient manner, one that reduces the amount of web services handling and management that you need to do in your organization, that reduces the amount of third-party API management that you need to get directly involved in and write line-by-line code for, you need to assess your portfolio and say, where are we at? What are the various systems that PeopleSoft needs to integrate to, whether those be operational systems, manufacturing systems, payroll and benefit services. You might be integrating with customer relationship management or supply chain management software, logistics, product lifecycle management, e-commerce platforms, or even collaboration platforms like SharePoint, email, productivity tools, and on and on. This is obviously a partial list of what you may have in your environment, and many times it involves proprietary and legacy software that you've either purchased from a boutique vendor or have actually programmed and developed yourself. And all of those various requirements are going to be such that you need to assess, that whole enterprise IT environment and determine what's there, what needs to be integrated, what are the touch points between these systems that are relevant to your integration requirements, not only from a purely moving data back and forth, but actually looking at the business process and how you can orchestrate, accelerate, and improve those business processes. So as you consider these, you're going to want to understand, is there user interaction on the other end of those touch points? Is someone waiting for information and response before they can continue using the system, or is it simply a background process? Is there it's just an information request where you're simply viewing information, or are you actually transacting information and processes between systems? Is the type of integration communication that's required synchronous or asynchronous? In other words, does do the threads remain open for that and reserved for that synchronous communication, or are you really using short bursts of asynchronous messaging that's going back and forth? Is it a short-lived or a long-running process? Short-lived process would be, for example, that user interaction where it's going to be concluded within a relatively discrete period of time, versus a long-running process where perhaps we've sent a request for a purchase order approval, and that is being managed either in a user interface where the person may check in a day later or 2 days later, or it might even be an email request, which is a specially formatted email that they can reply to, and it can the reply can be understood. Whatever, those long-running processes then have to probably have companion escalations, alerts, and alarms associated to them. That's a part of your integration consideration. What long-running processes will we have? What's the geographic span? Where is our data center located? What cloud-based applications do we have? What other satellite data centers are involved, and so on. And then, very importantly, is looking at not just the current state, but what is the desired future state in terms of the business process itself? How can we improve business processes at the same time that we're integrating those systems and business processes? And there quite often are a number of benefits that can be yielded to the organization in pursuit of that ROI that we mentioned at the very beginning, for the organization. The scope is one that obviously you'd want to manage carefully in an integration project, because virtually everything in your organization can benefit from integration and business process reengineering. And you want to be careful not to define your first project as doing everything. That obviously wouldn't be too wise. So we recommend starting with a manageable scope for your first project. Typically 2 to 3 primary integration flows or processes, and then building from there as those successes are immediately achieved and the organization gives you the positive feedback and support, and also the user organization begins to understand better what's possible in terms of improving process and not simply moving data, both of which, of course, are important. And then ultimately, of course, in order to begin that initial project, you're going to need to do the gap analysis. What APIs do we have in place? What middleware is available to us? What staff resources do we have that can manage this type of integration project, or do we need to look outside to a local consultant or a third-party integration company of some kind? And those are all options to be considered as well. Fortunately, as we've mentioned, PeopleSoft has an API environment. Depending upon your version of PeopleSoft, of course, this will be different. But with PeopleSoft Enterprise 8 and above, you have the PeopleSoft Integration Broker since version 8.4. And this is a set of comprehensive web services that really provide you with a way in and a way out of the PeopleSoft environment. Prior to that, of course, you could also, and you can continue to work with other kinds of methods, the PeopleSoft application messaging, the PeopleSoft component interface API, which supports Java and C, C++, COM, web services of various kinds. But it's an older methodology and probably not as ideal or comprehensive as the PeopleSoft Integration Broker. But depending upon your version and the particular situation and maybe even the environment that you're integrating with, you might choose one of these methods for those various reasons as well. But we do think that the best method is that PeopleSoft Integration Broker, obviously, and some of you are probably already very familiar with it, and are looking for ways to improve the handling of those web services that are coming out of the Integration Broker and the creation of web services that will interact on the other side that bring information to PeopleSoft as well. And so what we would recommend there, obviously, is a platform that gives you the ability to work with web services in order to work with the PeopleSoft Integration Broker, one that has the ability to transform, format, and transport XML, obviously, being able to work with application logic itself so that your higher-level platform can actually call those Java classes and Java objects and COM and C and C++ objects as well, and interact with them as needed. And you might even want to monitor directories, for flat files and parse those text files and perform basic CRUD operations on those files as well. It just depends on how far back into the legacy world you need to go in order to integrate with the API of that target third-party system that you're integrating with. In addition, these systems need to really make it a lot easier. So in addition to this ability to kind of go down to these technical levels, you also need to bring it up to the user level so that they don't have to engage in a lot of line-by-line coding. And even outside of the IT department, we might want to communicate, okay, this is the plan. This is what the business process looks like. And so a business process modeler inside of the middleware environment can be very valuable for that purpose, for visualizing the high-level business process, as well as for visually executing the integration flow itself. And so having a business process orchestration capability that can allow you to work with triggers in real time, and as well as doing asynchronous processes, scheduled processes, and so on, is extremely important. You want to be able to do that visual automated data mapping and transformation of information between systems, to be able to monitor the business processes as they're executing, and to make sure that all of this is done with an eye to scalability, to security, to SOA compliance, and of course, very important today is integration with mobile apps and the ability to support the creation of a mobile app that might extend or enhance or interact with your back-end PeopleSoft environment, as well as other systems that you might have in place. So what Magic Software does is offer a platform solution where we have an integration platform and an application platform that give you these capabilities. The integration platform does all the integration work that we've been talking about. The application platform allows you to create those mobile apps that you might need, or other web apps and so forth. And so that application platform creates native mobile clients, all based on a common sort of metadata-driven approach. In fact, the expression editor that you'll see is common to both Magic XPI and Magic XPA, so you're not learning two different middleware approaches. You're actually just utilizing one consistent middleware environment that serves two purposes, both back-end integration and the creation of front-end user-facing applications as needed to supplement what you have currently in place. So with these environments, to be able to create these mobile apps, we'll just say a brief word about it here, since we'll primarily be talking about the integration side. But one of the powerful things is that we want to emphasize is that these mobile apps are native apps, so they actually have the look and feel and interface of, you know, an iPad or iPhone app or an Android app in the Android environment. So you develop once, and then you deploy to these multiple environments in their native integration pattern. So it's not a web app, it's actually a native app that's running on each of those systems. In addition to that, if you want to create web apps, you can, and you can even create web apps for desktop and laptop and those kinds of environments as well. So all very powerful stuff for your systems and capabilities internally. Now, the integration platform in Magic XPI that we'll be showing you provides you with a whole variety of adapters, components, various integration methods, such as we'll be showing today, the web services integration, the ability to work with both SOAP and RESTful web services, all sorts of messaging protocols, JMS, MSQL, IBM's WebSphere MQ, and on. The various kinds of lower-level communication protocols, FTP, HTTP, obviously, even you know, TCP listeners and so on. So there are a variety of different tools in your toolkit so that you can work with almost any API, you know, that has been designed to be open. That's been designed to work with other systems. And so this is a really powerful tool set that's available to you to accomplish all this integration in a visual fashion, extending the capability of your PeopleSoft ERP system by pulling in information from other Oracle applications, from third-party applications, websites, and so on. So when we do that, we do it with the capability of a very scalable platform. Magic XPI uses in-memory computing techniques, and with those in-memory computing techniques, you get the advantage of co-location, which is an in-memory data grid of co-located memory and processing in these various spaces that creates the scalability and also the high availability that you're looking for. In-memory processes transact faster, not only because memory is faster than hard disk, but because the traditional tier-based architecture can be changed when it's understood that memory is solid, that memory is reliable. You don't have to have the archival step of writing to the SQL database, which is in the hard disk, as part of the transaction itself. The transaction is considered to be complete once the transaction has been stored in memory, and therefore the response time, that return message, whatever it might be to the other system, can occur much faster because you're not waiting for the archival step into SQL. And so that archival step takes place as needed after the fact, and you have these multiple parallel threads that are processing in these spaces in the in-memory data grid at a very high rapid rate, not only because they're in memory, but also because of the fact that they're utilizing this technique called write behind, which allows them to move on to the next task before the writing to the hard disk. Very powerful. And that really results in those two factors in this dynamic scaling, which means that through linear scalability, through this grid, you're able to achieve load balancing and elastic provisioning in such a way that you have very high performance services for your integration messaging layer, so that it can keep up with whatever you throw at it in terms of integration requirements. You simply have to provide it with the memory and processing power that it wants in order to do that. But it will scale beautifully. And at the same time, it is highly available. You know, we hear all the time about people who haven't planned for this adequately, and they have crashes. That just happened yesterday, very public way, on the fantasy football site FanDuel, where it went down in the middle of the day because they had more traffic than they were expecting. So high availability environment means that you're going to have hot backup. You're going to have the ability to utilize these other spaces as a failover environment and just immediately pick up in the process without having to engage in any kind of elaborate efforts beyond that. So that's really powerful advantage of the in-memory aspects of the data grid. Now, we're not talking about the high availability of your PeopleSoft environment per se, but the integration environment here is really what we're referring to. So you certainly want to make sure that you have high availability in all respects throughout your organization, of course. Now, in terms of security, this is an area where there's obviously been a lot of concern. What if we're integrating PeopleSoft with a third-party, CRM system like Sugar CRM, which is, a pretty secure environment. It's out there and it's in the cloud, but nevertheless, we want to run our integration platform and services behind that firewall so that those cloud-based services that we're accessing are, obviously on the other side of the firewall as well. And that gives us the ability to really have a very secure approach to integration, even when we're interacting with the cloud. And you can locate that service behind the firewall and yet still have full access to all of the cloud services that are out there and available. You also want to make sure that any of the information that is being moved back and forth through your integration platform is encrypted and decrypted as needed, and also stored in an encrypted fashion if there's any storage or archival steps required. And so Magic XPI integration platform provides all of these various cipher formats, the encryption standards, and you can choose the one that's appropriate to your organization based on the level of security that's required for your organization. There are performance overheads for any type of encryption, and there are also encryption strengths, and so you kind of want to balance the strength of the encryption against the performance level of the encryption environment, the performance degradation of that that's brought about by that, to choose the right balance of security and performance for your particular environment and requirements. And then finally, in the subjects of security, we would just bring up that with the Magic XPI integration platform, you have this excellent audit trail as well, which is important because you can specify that every step of the integration process, every important step of the integration process can be logged to a log file. You can even have attachments to that so you can see, okay, what information on this specific transaction was contained in that XML that was going back and forth. And that can be stored and encrypted and then accessed as needed so that you can see what the information was that went back and forth in that particular transaction, who the user was, what the time of access was, and so forth. So what I'd like to do at this point is invite Or to become the presenter, and when he does that, he'll actually be able to share his desktop with us, and we will be able to see a demonstration of the Magic XPI integration platform in place. So it looks like we're seeing Or's desktop, so take it away, Or.
Thank you, Glenn. So today, for the first part, for my part of the demo, I wanted to show you, first of all, real-life integration into PeopleSoft or from PeopleSoft, and then once we cover that, I actually wanted to do in the Magic XPI Studio a bunch of things development related. As I know, these webinars are mostly, I mean, we also have a bunch of material online, and this is something that we haven't done in previous webinars. I want to show Magic XPI platform as a rapid development platform, and show you what we do in Magic when we talk about integration behind the scenes. So to start with today's integration, let's have a look at a real-life scenario of integrating something, specifically vendors, from PeopleSoft into another application. This time we'll do a Salesforce integration, although as you will see from the studio, it doesn't really matter what system we decide to integrate into. It's all pretty much similar and quite simple. So I'm going to take an account that exists currently in my vendors list in PeopleSoft, and I'll bring my Salesforce screen over, and exists here, and the data is synchronized because when we run an integration process in the background between, for example, PeopleSoft and a CRM like Salesforce, there is a server that runs in the background constantly. Make sure that the records are synced. And for example, let me go to addresses in my vendor list, and you can see the address 11 Side Street in New York City and so on. And if I go back to Salesforce, you will see that the same address appears here. Now, what is integration? Integration is a process that runs in the background. When information is changed in one system, if it is relevant for the other system, will flow to that other system based on a set of rules and business processes and business logic that you want to build your project with. So vendor information, because salespeople in my company are interested in that, and address is important for that, we'll change the address in the PeopleSoft side and do a save, and hit save. Once the information is saved in PeopleSoft, if there is an integration platform in the background, and we decided that for the business process that we designed, address information is relevant for Salesforce, there is a system that will read that record and save it into Salesforce. So if I go back into Salesforce, you can see the address is still here, but if I click F5 and refresh the record, you see the address has been updated according to what it is in PeopleSoft. So we have two systems. They speak different languages. They serve different purposes, but relevant information between the applications, between the systems, flows back and forth. So how is it done? It's done by having a Magic XPI server running currently in the background and basically acting as an integration hub, meaning it's listening for events. Integration in general, we've said it a bunch of times, is not something that you log into. It's not something, it doesn't have an interface. It's a process that runs in the background and it's listening for events that are relevant for my integration, and then it carries out a sequence of events based on the initial event that eventually has the integration or has the process that we've designed running, meaning records being synced from PeopleSoft into Salesforce, or from Salesforce into SharePoint, or from PeopleSoft into a custom-made application that I wrote in Java that has a SQL database in the background. It doesn't really matter what it's syncing, as long as it's syncing and running my integration, the logic of integration. And what I wanted to show you is how we write the logic of the integration. When you purchase Magic XPI, you get the full suite, which is the Studio, Monitor, and Server. Server is what's currently running in the background, carrying out the integration. When we change the address here, it grabbed that record and created it and updated it in Salesforce. Because we don't log into an integration, Magic provides you with a monitor that lets you see the back-end side of the integration. A record has been picked up. Which record? This one from PeopleSoft. It's updated in Salesforce. What's the Salesforce ID? This one. Those are user-defined messages that I can write. It doesn't have to be user-defined messages. I have standard messages. How long did the transaction take? When was a process started? How long did it take overall to run? How many processes ran in an hour? I can filter based on specific messages or dates. I can view only errors if I want to. And this is basically my eyes into the integration, because integration is kind of like a batch process. It's something that runs in the background. It's not batch, meaning it's running in batch mode operation. It's batch because it doesn't have an interface. So this is the monitor. This is my eyes to the integration, or the important, the neat stuff, the cool stuff in Magic is writing the integration. How do I get these messages in the monitor? How do I get the integration to one? And this is the Magic XPI Studio. And as you can see, what I've done here is very short and very simple, because it only grabbed records from specific objects in PeopleSoft and forwarded that into and updated that in Salesforce. And this is how I design it. This is how I write it. It's very simple, very fast. Magic XPI and Magic XPA, our application development platform, are rapid development tools. They do a lot for you. You do not have to write line by line codes in Java, .NET, or whatever in order to get your integration to run, in order to read records from one application and to write them into another one. It's all done very intuitively in a drag, drop, and configure visual approach. And that's what we did here. So for example, we provided PeopleSoft a trigger. The trigger for the event of syncing records was me clicking the Save button in PeopleSoft. Again, if I'll go to my PeopleSoft UI, I made a change to the history, to the, I did a correct history and I changed the address. Let's change it again. Once I click Save, this is an event. This is a trigger. So I've created a trigger in an integration platform that would get those requests. I now consider this a request to an update in Salesforce. Even though Salesforce transaction is not bound to here. I mean, it's not connected in a way that it'll fail me saving anything in PeopleSoft. People that are using PeopleSoft should know how to use PeopleSoft the way that they are trained to do, the way that the company wants them to use PeopleSoft. But when a transaction was saved, this can be a triggered event to start syncing stuff into Salesforce. So let's go back into Salesforce, refresh the screen again, and see 555 Main Street, because again, a trigger has been hit. So in Magic XPI, the development window, which is this big window here, is basically divided into two sections, the white one and the gray one. The gray one is the trigger area when we can write our trigger. So for example, we created an HTTP trigger, a URL, that once you hit save in PeopleSoft, that URL is hit with information that is relevant from PeopleSoft. Now, doing that on the PeopleSoft side is quite easy. Doing it in Magic XPI is extremely easy, and this is how we develop integration into PeopleSoft. We add logic to buttons on the PeopleSoft screen so that people will still be using PeopleSoft the way that they are used to using. When we say to all of our customers, when we give you this tool, learning how to use this tool, basic training on Magic XPI development platform, is between 3 to 4 days. The reason it is so fast is because this is a rapid development tool. It'll take you 4 days to learn this, but I do not want to change the way. I don't want to teach you other applications. If you integrate PeopleSoft to Salesforce, or if you integrate, I don't know, JDE to SAP B1, I don't want to change the way that you're using your applications. I want you to do it the same way that you are, and Magic will react accordingly. So I'll show you in a minute, this is what I was saying before, how to create an HTTP trigger and how fast it is, how rapid it is. Once we get such a request from PeopleSoft into the Magic XPI platform, now we can write our logic here, and we write our logic by taking steps, connectors, adapters from the left here, and dropping them on top of the tree that I create here. It's kind of like a Visio approach, a business process-oriented approach that you can create logic of your business process, of your sets of rules that you want for your integration. For example, my rule is when a vendor is updated in PeopleSoft, what will happen? And then I'll write a set of rules, and kind of like in Visio, kind of like in a graphical approach, check if the request is valid. If it is valid, update in Salesforce. If it's not, log. After you update it in Salesforce, let's add a step. For example, let's send an email that would say a new account has been created. So all I have to do is take an email step, drag it and drop it on top of the tree, hit the configuration button because it's code for environment, click new and say send a new email, quick send. Sorry, quick send. 2, let's use my email address. I just want to make sure that I don't mistype my email address. So, and the subject is new SF account, and the body can be, I don't know, in a plain text format or an HTML format, however you want to create it, and it'll simply be the Salesforce ID, just so that I can see what was updated in Salesforce. And that's it. I've added a new step into the logic here that will actually send an email as part of the integration process running in the background. And I'll do another update in PeopleSoft later, and I'll show you how fast it was to send another email here. And this is basically all we do, and to deploy it is very fast, and to make sure that the process is running is very fast. It's a rapid development tool that lets you do quite a lot because the connection behind the scenes is done for you, and I'll show it to you in a second again. Now let's talk about the business process approach. The business process says a new request has arrived, valid, not valid. I want to send the email regardless of what the other step is. I'll set it instead of linear as parallel because, as Glenn mentioned, this is a scalable process. Stuff can be executed in parallel. Okay, we can have multiple threads, multiple memory threads, multiple events being executed at the same time. So sending the email will be at the same time as logging the new account from Salesforce into my log, and that's it. Now say, for example, I want to save it and deploy it. I'm building an executable, and that's it. After the executable is built, I can stop and restart my integration process. It will be running constantly in the background, and the next time I do a save, I will also get an email. Let's stop the integration. This is the monitor again. This is where I have a list of all my projects, and I can stop and start them and control them from here. I just stopped the PeopleSoft one, and I'll start it again with the new logic after I've built it. And now if we go here and we make another change, instead of New York City, it will be LA. The integration process is running in the background. Sorry, I'm on the wrong server. I'll click Save. And at the same time, that stuff will be updated in Salesforce. First request after a server has been started might take a few seconds. An email, I already got the email, will be sent. You can see the pop-up of the email here, and the Salesforce account comes with it. Let me show you my full email screen in a sec. As you can see, the city has been updated to LA. And this is my email. I got an email from iBolt saying a new Salesforce account and the ID of the account. I can stand here, type the ID of the account as the URL. This is how it works in Salesforce. Click enter and see what was updated. So that's it. This is how we add something into a flow in Magic XPI. It's a flow of a business process. It's rapid developed. It's very, very fast to add an email. How did I add the trigger? How do I allow a process in PeopleSoft to be integrated in? How do I create such a URL for PeopleSoft to call Magic XPI? Let's create another flow. Let's call it incoming 2, because I already have an incoming XML. And what we do is we create in a repository, we create a service or a resource. We create something like a URL for PeopleSoft to call. And it's all done very intuitively by a few clicks of a button. Let's call it a service. Let's call it test URL. Let's give it an endpoint like trigger1. And let's ask for 2 arguments, num1, num2. And that's it. I've created, there is a URL now already that Magic will be listening to. Which URL? I copy pasted it just so that I can show it to you here. This is the URL. And this is something that I can call, a physical URL that I can call in PeopleSoft. Now let's add some logic to the flow that we just created, just to show you how fast things are. I'll take another step called flow data. I'll create 2 new variables, num1 and num2, just to grab the arguments coming from the URL. And I'll create a response page, which would be trimming, changing into string of f.num1 plus f.num2. And that's it. Now this is what we see here is the expression editor. I want to stop here and explain this for a little bit. Glenn was mentioning this while he was doing his part of the presentation. This is basically the only place where we code. Now, we don't actually code. We write small functions, we add small parts of logic. I'll show you what we did for the PeopleSoft integration, the only thing that took encoding, and I'll show you when it's important. However, as you can see, it's a very intuitive tool just to write a few functions to trim or to str. Say, for example, you're a new developer, you just got Magic XPI, and you want to learn about functions. The good thing about having Magic around for the last 20 years is that everything is very well documented. I stand on str, I click F1, and I can see the str function and what it needs, what are the parameters, what it will return, and an example. Same thing for trim. I can stand on trim. I can just go to functions and see the entire function list and learn about the Magic XPI functions and what I can do with them. All is very, very well documented. Let's click OK, OK, save, and use the trigger that we just configured, which is the test URL one, and set the variables in. Okay, and that's it. I very fast added the URL that Magic will do, and not just added the URL, added a very small functionality just to show you what Magic can do behind the scenes when it comes to integration. So let me stop the process for a second, build it, and then I'll execute it again, and then I'll show you what happens when we call the URL that we've just created. That's it, it's built. And then I start the process again. And now I want to pass arguments into a URL. Now this is general for every time that you call a URL. It's what the server does behind the scenes when you call a REST API, even a web service API. It concatenates the arguments based on the request format that you have. So we have n1 equals and n2 equals let's say 4 and 5. And after the server is running, I can now click enter and wait until I get the response, which is 9, based on the logic that we've added. So to add a URL that Magic will be listening to add logic to that URL, all is done within 5 minutes while I'm talking as I'm explaining what it is that I'm doing. It's a rapid development tool that lets you write your logic very fast, very intuitively, code-free environment. Let's go back to the studio and I'll show you a few more things regarding what we did for the PeopleSoft integration demo. So it was the same thing. A trigger is listening to the URL. That URL is added as part of the save button when you create a new vendor. Now it doesn't have to be vendor. It can be whatever you want for your business process once you click save, or once you change something, or once you edit something. In PeopleSoft, depending on where you want to put the URL call, you do it quite easily. Once you hit save, you send arguments, and this is how PeopleSoft allows integration, REST APIs, through REST APIs. You send that request into Magic. We get the request into Magic regarding the vendor in a format of an XML, because this is what is sent from PeopleSoft. This is what PeopleSoft allows you to do. So then we come down to the next step. We get not just number 1 and number 2, not just very simple things. We get XMLs. We get a lot of data from an application and we want to sync it to another application. We do that in a data mapping screen. This is our data mapper step, which basically exists in each of our components, like the Salesforce component that I'm going to show you in a sec, where you can click configure, and this is what I did here. I want to update or upsert into accounts based on the external ID. And we get this screen. This is the crown jewel of Magic, the source to destination screen, where you can sync one application to another. The XML is the request coming from PeopleSoft. That's all it is. The Salesforce object is also defined by me selecting accounts as what I want to upsert into. And then you click map. Now, just again here, the source can be in whatever format you want it to be. The information can come from a database, from a flat file, sets of arrays, variables, and so on. The destination can be just the same. But once you have that set up, you can click map. And then you can see the information coming from PeopleSoft based on the PeopleSoft schema for vendors. So this is the vendor synchronization schema. And the information that we needed to map into Salesforce came from here. And we map it into Salesforce based on the fields we have in Salesforce. Let me open this because this is the other information that is relevant. And all we have to do is connect source to destination. So we have a set of data coming from PeopleSoft after we click the save button. We have the object of the destination application on the right. And now if we want to sync something, we just connect line to line. For example, I want to take address field 1 and connect it to site, just because this is what I have to integrate to. Just as an example. Now, as I was saying, as I was promising, I have to show you what happens when you do the syncing and you want to use some functions to manipulate the data, the expression editor that I've showed you previously. Where do we mostly use the expression editor? When we integrate between two applications, and data is a bit different format-wise, length-wise, picture-wise between the two applications. For example, in PeopleSoft we have name 1, name 2, which is first name, last name, and in Salesforce we only have name. So we connect a line from here to here and a line from here to here. Then we double click the name and we write a small function where we do a concatenation with a space in the middle. That's it. How do I build this function? Take name 1 and space in between and name 2. And that's it. Even when we do have to write code, it's very intuitive. We have the expression editor lets you build your expression based on what it is you actually need for the needs of your integration, and lets you verify that the expression is valid. For example, if instead of spaces I did 8, which is a number, and I click verify, it'll tell me there's a mismatch in the expression attributes because the numeric does not belong in a string. So Magic XPI lets you build your phrases in a very intuitive way, and that's all you have to do when you integrate source to destination applications, and that's it. This is how long it took to write integration, or to add an email, or to allow a new HTTP interface between PeopleSoft and whatever, this time Salesforce. And it's doing it because Magic XPI connectors and adapters are already written to serve integration technologies, meaning when an application provides a backdoor window for developers, an API basically, to read or to write data into, it's either directly to the database, so we have a data mapper technology, web service API, REST API, and those are already created in Magic XPI, and the way for you to develop with those APIs is very intuitive, very fast, and we do a lot of webinars on them, so I'm sure you can find them online. That's it on the technical part for PeopleSoft integration. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them. Glenn, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Or. I appreciate that. And if you have any questions at this time, we would invite you to type them into the question box or to the chat box and send them to the host and presenter. We'll be happy to answer questions regarding today's presentation or anything that is on your mind. So please take a moment and enter those questions into the chat box. Okay, the first question that came up is, could you explain the .NET service?
There's not a lot to explain. As I was saying before, with our connectors and adapters, we have ways of connecting directly to applications. I showed you the Salesforce that connects directly to Salesforce. I showed you HTTP, which is a technology-based adapter that lets you get or send HTTP requests. Same thing is a .NET service. It's a technology-based adapter. Lets you use your .NET code in your integration. I can take a .NET service, drag it and drop it, and then I can use a .NET program during my integration. Say as the next step, I want to call a .NET program that would create a pop-up window somewhere and save something to somewhere. All I have to do is create a component here.
Okay, great. And the next question, can you work with nested XML? How large?
There's no limitation on the sizes of XMLs that we can work with. Magic XPI Data Mapper lets you read an XML based on the XML description, on a schema, an XSD file. And the XMLs can be either stored as variables in memory or as physical files on your server while you read them. There's no limitation to the size of XML that you hold in memory as long as you have the memory capacity for it. And for big XMLs, for very, very big XMLs, we use streaming parser, so you can check this box in order to work with large XMLs, extremely large XMLs.
Okay, and does it require its own server? What are the hardware requirements?
Those you can find online. It doesn't require its own server. Usually it's the best approach. It doesn't have to be a physical server, it can be VM. For development you need Windows. To run the process eventually in the backend, you can run it either on Windows or Unix or Linux. All are available platforms, and you can read about prerequisites. I don't remember everything regarding the prerequisites. It's usually something around 4 or 8 gigs of RAM, 2 cores, stuff like that.
Okay, great. That looks like all the questions that are coming in. So thank you very much, Or, for your presentation. Very informative and useful as always. And thanks to each of you for joining us today on the webinar. We look forward to seeing you again soon. If you have any questions, please send us an email at info@magicsoftware.com or give us a call at 949-250-1718. If you're from outside of U.S. and Canada, you can check for the location of an office near you on the Magic Software website at magicsoftware.com. Thanks again. We'll talk to you again soon.
Goodbye.